what is our real like shining light? We say that it's not about the teeth, it's about the life the teeth inspire you to live.
This episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast is brought to you by our friends at Philips Sonicare. Thank you for helping dental professionals elevate oral care with your partnership and dedication. Philips Sonicare offers comprehensive oral care solutions catering to the entirety of our patients' needs. To achieve a healthier oral environment for your patients and provide them with a more radiant smile, Philips Sonicare provides an array of products designed to optimize their oral hygiene regimen. These offerings are meticulously crafted to ensure optimum efficiency, allowing clinicians to tailor their brushing experiences accordingly to their specific patient needs and requirements, whether it be teeth whitening, enhanced plaque removal, or overall gum health. Sonicare electric toothbrushes harness an impressive technology boasting 62,000 brush head movements per minute. This innovative approach gently pulses water between the teeth, effectively dislodging plaque and facilitating its removal. Backed by over a century of healthcare expertise, Philips Sonicare instills confidence in users, and it's consistently helping us clinicians get the results we desire. For more information about Philips Sonicare products, please visit the link in the caption below. Welcome back to another episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast, part 2 with Dr. Andi-Jean Miro. If you didn't listen to episode 1 from last week, we talked about her journey in dentistry, growing up in Brooklyn, going to dental school, taking a train, a plane, a boat, a train, another plane, a walk to get to school, how she met her mentors that ultimately led her to working at APA Aesthetic in New York and now in LA, and kind of the journey to creating her own educational company called STRIBE. And with that, welcome back. Hi.
Hello. What's
Fancy
going
meeting you
on?
here again.
Do you think they can tell? They can tell my lipstick is fake?
Can they tell mine is fake?
Is yours fake?
No,
it's real.
It's very real. I've been doing the red lipstick thing since I saw Taylor Swift in concert.
Understandable. How was Taylor Swift in concert? Did you have the most amazing time?
I want to do a podcast episode about the things I learned at the Taylor Swift concert and about life in general and dentistry from the perspective of a human observing a demigod up on stage.
I think that would go viral, actually. I feel like it would.
I don't know. I feel like
How Taylor has not
lessons.
messaged you yet about that dress at that concert. Like, that was such a great idea. What a good moment.
I was on television. I was on TV. I was on the radio. I was on like multiple news channels.
Good for you.
Yeah. I don't think I got much from it because my Instagram is very dental. So like people probably saw that post and they're like, oh, what are these bloody teeth? But
the girl inside of us all.
Since the Taylor Swift concert, I bought this lipstick, like some cheapy lipstick from the drugstore, because like I needed to match the Tortured Poets outfit. And I've been wearing it ever since, because every time I do, people like give me so many compliments. Like, oh my God, that red lipstick. I'm like, I am now this person. I have so many different shades of red lipstick in my Sephora basket. I'm very concerned for the future of my life.
Well, the right shade of red is going to make your teeth look a little whiter. So live your best life. I like it. Your teeth look super, super white.
Do they?
Look good. Yeah, they look really good. I
brushed them this morning for a full 2 minutes.
I'm very proud of you. Good job.
Okay, let's talk teeth, shall we?
Let's talk teeth.
You've devoted the better part of your career to educating humans, starting at NYU, right? Assistant clinical professor at NYU, teaching clinically, teaching now theory and clinical, and your 2-day hands-on courses, which are epic. I'd love to take them. I don't prep.
You should when we're in Toronto.
This is the biggest issue. So as a restorative hygienist, there's a gap in the market. So as a restorative hygienist in Canada, which there's also dental therapists, and in the United States, EFTAs that do restorative work, depending on what state you're in and what province you're in. You know, there's certain expanded functions that other clinicians can do. So I can do everything a dentist can do except prep teeth and do a final restoration on an implant. I can place the restoration, but I can't do the final torque or cement, which I hope nobody's doing anymore, but you know, nonetheless.
Can you bond a veneer?
Yes. I can
Wow.
bond a veneer, I can cement a crown, I can do a filling, I can do a post and core, I can do a deep marginal elevation, I can scan, I can do smile design, I can do everything
I love this. How do
except
we convert
preferences.
this to the United States so that you
You
can come
can.
and
It's
live
just
with in LA?
New
Live us in
York.
LA.
LA has therapists, I think. Don't quote me. I'll find out.
Not sure.
I'll add it to the show notes.
Mhm.
But anyways, where was I going? Chickens. There's just little monkeys in my head with symbols going ding ding most of the time. Um, where were we going, Andy?
You were talking about
What was the question?
restorations, and I was asking you about
elevated care. We were going to go into elevated care. We're going to start. I have some like controversial questions that I have
Let's hit
opinions on that I think we should hit. There is a huge rise right now in this like DIY dentistry, DIY aligners, over-the-counter whitening kits that are more accessible to people financially, but we're not quite sure what's in them or where they came from, that don't present without their own risks. And as someone like you who's deeply rooted in aesthetic dentistry, how do you feel about companies and products that are not necessarily supported or influenced or created or designed or scientifically researched by dentists?
Mm-hmm. I think we live in a world today where information is all over the internet. People's opinions on science sometimes is received by the general public in the form of an Instagram reel or a video. And so a lot of the time we're getting these like sound bites, right? Like, I did this and it was amazing. No. But dentistry, there's a reason why people have licenses to practice dentistry. And we are seeing the prevalence of DIY care gone bad. We're seeing companies go bankrupt because, I mean, big surprise and shocker, this model is not good and it does not allow for somebody overseeing treatment in the right way. And unfortunately, the only people that pay are the patients. They pay with the complications that they now have for the rest of their life because of treatment that was not rendered correctly. And so one of the biggest things that I am seeing in the US is the rise of a lot of revision dentistry, where people are going abroad and they're getting, like for me, I spend my life teaching people not to cut teeth. And so when I see patients that are 21, 22 years old and have gone to different countries and have gotten all of their teeth drilled down, if you think that there's not a biological implication because of that, you are so mistaken. If you think that this is going to be good when you're 70 years old, you are mistaken. Teeth have life cycles, and we could talk about that all day. But the truth of the matter is, once you touch a tooth, you start a life cycle that ends to that tooth becoming bad or coming out of your body and needing to be replaced. And it's just a matter of how invasive you are that will create this life cycle moving a little bit fast or slow. And so I think, unfortunately, the people that are paying for this are people that are looking for solutions to problems. And, the market is flooded with, do this thing and you're going to have some quick
photo of your
fix.
Teeth and we'll send you this item back. Yeah. I think like most recently, just like early in December, we know that Smile Direct Club went bankrupt, but in early December, the New York Attorney General awarded like $4.8 million to like 28,000 customers that had gone through the Smile Direct Club, whatever process. Many of them New Yorkers. I think there's like 2,300 of those patients were New Yorkers. And it's just it continues, but someone somewhere has to put their foot down. And I think that it's just too easy to create a consumer product these days. I mean, we see that in the toothbrush world, where people are just like jumping on Alibaba, reaching out to some random toothbrush manufacturer somewhere in Asia, Southeast Asia, and like creating a toothbrush that's now
Right.
branded with their branding. And like, where is the science money going? Nowhere. Like, it's just some manufacturer somewhere sticking bristles on a vibrating device that may or may not be a different kind of vibrating device originally. Did you read that article? There was
Yes,
an article. There was an article that was written that someone took apart an electric toothbrush that was manufactured in Asia, and they took apart a other form of vibrating device.
Right.
And the internal mechanism that was vibrating was identical. It was created in the same factory, Andy, in the same factory. So they took it apart. They're like, can it do both? Like,
I guess so. Jeez.
Now, in the aesthetic world, like cosmetic surgery, physical cosmetic surgery world, this like culture of going overseas, like male hair transplants in Turkey are a big thing. And not to say that that's a bad thing. Like, if anyone wants to enhance themselves, I mean, I subscribe to that, that philosophy. But
I get it.
If you can see me frown, I think it's too late. But the same thing is happening with this veneer culture, right? We've got this like Turkey phenomenon where people are going to parts of the world to get cheaper dentistry abroad. Sometimes really aggressive preps, really aggressive margins. We don't know what kind of material is going into the final product and immediately. So they're not living in temporization. It's not allowing the tissue to settle down. And how do you address, and I'm sure you see this more than the average human. How do you address patients who have pursued alternate treatments by going somewhere for a cheaper price? That's the first question I have, but I have a few follow-ups. So like, someone comes in to see you. What do you do?
So this is honestly the bulk of my practice now. The amount of revision dentistry that we are doing is very, very high because patients are traveling. I get a lot of patients that travel down to Mexico from California, and they're traveling around. And, the dentistry is being done. And for a short period of time, the dentistry might look really good. But then when the problems start, they start to compound. So, problems that arise from dentistry that is done poorly. We're talking about bad breath. We're talking about inflamed gums. What does inflamed gums lead to? It leads to the bone around your teeth getting degraded. When that bone starts to break down, we get tooth mobility and teeth start to move around. So obviously the result that you started with and were really happy with could start to change. And it's when things start to shift and move that we start to have bigger problems. Now you're banging on teeth and that tooth might need a root canal. And then maybe that same thing is happening in another tooth. And these problems lead to additional treatment being needed. And over time, the more, again, it goes back to that life cycle idea, the more that we're harming a tooth, the less that life cycle of that tooth will exist in your mouth. And so for me, one of the hardest things as somebody that's going to revise this dentistry is having a really honest conversation with the patient and saying, like, listen, I can do everything in my power to be as minimal as possible. I can try every way to bond these in as cleanly as possible. I can do everything right, and you can still have problems after because of what was done. And that conversation is not a conversation I used to have with patients. And then they would have all these problems. And the problems were not from the dentistry that I did. It was from the biologic effect of touching a tooth multiple times because we had to revise the care. So, I try my best to really talk patients through these problems. But, even yesterday, I had a patient in the office. And I can call this case supervised neglect, okay? The patient comes in and there's always a reason that prompts that person getting treatment, right? He broke his lower tooth, it fell out, Okay. I look at his mouth, and at first glance, his teeth don't look too bad. The gums look relatively healthy. He has some mobility. He definitely has some problems in some teeth. But then when I start to take x-rays, I'm seeing a completely different picture. And, after talking to the patient, he's telling me that he's using these perio trays for the last 7 years. And so, in my opinion, yeah, these perio trays are hiding a problem. His gums look amazing because they're bathing in hydrogen peroxide. His teeth look white because they're bathing in hydrogen peroxide, but it has not solved the underlying problem, which is you are going to lose every single tooth in your mouth. And to me, having that conversation with a patient who walks in for one single tooth, that's a harder conversation in dentistry. But that is the same conversation I'm having with all of these revision cases. It's, these are patient problems, and we have to make it about them. They need to own the fact that they have not gotten the proper care over time, and this has led to problems. It's definitely tricky, but I think one of the biggest things is trying to get them happy with the way it looks, and then really empowering them to take care of it. I think that is something that I've seen so much in dentistry, where, we talk about at APA Aesthetic, what is our real shining light? We say that it's not about the teeth. It's about the teeth. It's not about the teeth. It's about the life the teeth inspire you to live. And so we have changed something about the way that you look. We have changed your appearance in doing your teeth. And what effect does that have psychologically on a patient? Well, a lot of my patients, once I've done this to them and I've transformed something about them, they've then gone and lost weight, have met the people that they love, have inspired them to start businesses. These people have this innate feeling of they feel good because of something I've been a part of. That to me is the rewarding part of dentistry, seeing my patient's life be changed because of something I had a part of. I don't know.
That's profound. I think people seem to think that cheaper is better for some reason, but there's certain things that, okay,
don't group on your face. Right. Don't group on your face.
Go cheap with I don't know, certain things that aren't going to be as physically impactful. Right. Like fine, don't buy the really expensive socks. Get something that's a little cheaper. All right, we're not going to buy organic mangoes this month. Fine, but something that goes through such impact, right? Your teeth go through such impact. It impacts the way that you function. And it has nothing, and most of the time it has nothing to do with dentistry and everything to do with physics. And when you're putting physics is always going to win. Gravity will always win. Yes. Which leads me to my next question, this concept of to do or to not do ortho before veneers.
I love this.
I don't know if you know my personal history in aesthetic dentistry, but I worked for the version of Dr. Rosenthal in Toronto when I was a new dental hygienist. His name was Dr. Saul Weiss, and our neighborhood is called the Yorkville neighborhood. It's kind of a bougie area. So he saw a lot of celebrities, and by extension, I got to see a lot of celebrities and people coming in from out of town to do cosmetic work. Now, his veneers hopefully have changed with time and with materials. But I remember people coming in and saying, well, should I do Invisalign? Or at that point, that was the only clear aligner option. Should I do Invisalign or ortho and then do any aesthetics? And he would say, no. He's like, no. I need your teeth to be in the most stable position. And it's this constant argument between ortho and cosmetic dentistry. Was like, well, ortho is we want to build a good foundation. We want to keep the teeth in the right position. And that's great. It's all good and great if you're not going to put in expensive dentistry. And you just touched on this in our last question about things shift. So how do you feel about a patient that's coming in for minor or major work? And they ask you the question of well, should I straighten them first?
Of course. I think in dentistry, people like to make these all or nothing statements. I don't believe in this. I think that for every patient, there is a custom plan. Okay. So if a patient is coming to me, and the majority of my patients are coming to me after they've tried a lot of those things. So they've done the Invisalign, it hasn't gotten them the results that they want, or they're not compliant, right? Or I'm getting patients that have had ortho when they were much younger, have had four bicuspid extractions, now have sleep apnea, have a lot of wear and attrition to their teeth because they're more constricted because of losing teeth and retracting the arch. And so I get a lot of different patients on the spectrum. I am not somebody that says veneers are the solution to every problem, but they definitely, in the right scenarios, can lead to not touching a tooth as invasive as you think. So in certain situations where teeth are smaller, teeth are already worn down, well, the truth is you've already done the preparation to your teeth. So now my job is to give you back what you've lost. And I think the biggest part about this is understanding where a patient is starting and where they want to go. If I have a patient that comes in and their teeth are flared out and there's a ton of crowding, of course, this is the conversation that we're going to have. At the end of the day, it's up to the patient to understand what is more invasive, what is not, and to decide what is right for them with my advice, with my guidance. I can only tell you all of the good and the bad things that can happen with both options, and it's your job to make a decision. And, obviously there's different comfort levels for different types of clinicians where they want to do certain things. I try to really customize each treatment towards a patient.
You post a lot of really great case reviews on your Instagram stories, which I love. And I like seeing like your prep work, which I think a lot of people don't share their prep work. It's like the secret behind the finish, but it makes a huge difference. And I remember you shared this case, and I'm sure you probably remember it more vividly than me, but it was a full arch case. And again, like building more of the buccal corridors and giving some of the length, but your preps were so minimal and you didn't break through any of the contacts, which I was like, this is great. I think people have this philosophy that like creating veneers are this like quote unquote 3/4 crown, like they used to call it, where you're breaking through the contacts and you're creating new contacts. But like, that's the hardest part of a restoration. Why would you want to break through that if you don't have to?
Right.
And again, that life cycle, like a young person that comes in, me, fabulous me, Taylor Swift in my 30s. If I'm getting veneers done once and then again twice and then 3 times, by the time I'm in my 60s and 70s, I'm probably going to have these restorations replaced. And every time you do re-prep a little, you remargin, you recreate.
Yes.
I find it really fascinating. So how often are you actually breaking through contacts versus not?
I am only breaking contacts when I absolutely have to. When there is a composite filling in the interproximals, I'm going to carry my piece of porcelain interproximal and make it one piece of porcelain. I think one of the biggest things, if we think to dental school, everything in our first year of dental school, where they teach us how to prepare teeth, is based off of old concepts of GV Black, of amalgam, right? Retention, right? Creating preps that are retentive. We are doing adhesive dentistry. We are etching enamel.
Yeah.
Etching enamel, creating enamel bonds with a piece of porcelain that is super predictable, more predictable than if I cut a tooth, get into the underlying layer, get into the dentin layer. That is not going to penetrate my bond and my etch as much as the outer layer of the tooth. So it's in my interest to preserve as much of the tooth, especially the enamel, as possible, so that I get better bonding. Now, I have been called out a ton of times on Instagram. I had one dentist take some of my content, put it on his social media and say, look at this girl. She's so proud that she's not breaking contacts. Like, this is what you need to do if you need to do dentistry, and you need to cut crowns. And like, Does she not understand that these margins are not underneath the gums? And I'm just thinking to myself, like, has this person not understood so many years of literature that allow us to do the things that we have done predictably? I've been a part of the APA aesthetic family. And before the APA aesthetic family was APA aesthetic, it was APA Rosenthal. And this family has 30 years of post-ops of doing this type of dentistry. So I saw what it looked like in Polaroids years ago and what it looked like in person today. It's wild.
Doing manual smile designs on a physical Polaroid, taking the Polaroid picture as close as you could get. And then with permanent marker, he would draw on the Polaroid to show the length. Like that was the mock. That was the smile design. The mock-up was done with composite, but it was like on the physical Polaroid.
Right. It's crazy.
I get that.
So I think when you don't have that background, when you don't have enough years of experience of understanding, the more you cut a tooth, the worse the tooth is going to be. So for me, if I can design, and a lot of these patients are coming to me needing more volume, right? So if you need more volume, why would I have to cut that tooth? I'm going to add to that tooth. Right. So I think it starts with, like, we talk about facial aesthetic design, designing a smile in the frame of the lower third of your face. So if we are trying to make that smile look a little bit wider, we don't have to cut your teeth. And, I think dentistry is bad in that dentists are always so negative towards each other. They always want to prove I'm more right, you're more right. But the truth is, at the end of the day, the dentistry will speak for itself. I am trying to do the best I know how for my patients. And how do I do that? I try to become the most educated that I can. I travel the world looking for knowledge of the best way to do things. And that's how I like to do my dentistry. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that dentistry costs a lot more money because of the way that I'm doing it and because of that predictability,
The Instagram and TikTok world is an interesting place for people with credentials to share their opinions, but you're only as smart as the knowledge that you've acquired, and you're only as good as the clinical cases that you've failed on.
100%.
And I find it really interesting when I don't subscribe to that type of content. Like I don't like to watch it, and I don't like to comment on it, and I definitely don't like to post it because you never know what happened in that room, and you never know where someone started. But this like TikTok social media culture where there is a huge impact on patient expectations based on what they see. And I'm sure they come to you and they scroll through a bunch of stuff and say, I want this. And you're like, but you're not that person. You're a 5'3" small blonde woman, and you're showing me the teeth of a 175-pound man and saying you want that. So with these platforms like Instagram and TikTok showcasing what perfection is, giving people this unrealistic expectation of what goals should look like. How do you navigate those conversations with someone that's coming in for a consultation, looking for some big work to be done? And at what point do you say, I might not be the right person for you?
Oh, this is such a good question, Irene.
I'm sorry.
No, I think this is what people do not talk about on social media. And I get so passionate about it because 95% of my day is managing patient expectations. And so how do I manage those expectations? I have very clear discussions during the consultation of this is why we need to treat this many teeth. And a lot of the problems that you see in dentistry. So let's take it back even a step more. A lot of the problems that you see in dentistry are like, oh, my veneer popped off, right? Oh, I don't want to get veneers because they pop off. Well, why is something happening, and why is that happening to you? Okay, because my patients' veneers don't pop off, right? And you have to think about it. It goes back to the treatment plan. So a lot of times patients want to do 4 teeth or they want to do 2 teeth, right? And we cannot create ideal in a certain environment. If somebody is collapsed and their teeth are really worn down, how can I give you the teeth that you desire and the size that you desire in this function that you cannot have that length? So a lot of the things that I talk about with patients are getting the treatment plan right so that we can create predictable function. And so, having those clear conversations at a consultation, that's the first thing. And then our process, the way we design a smile is by hand. So I take some flowable composite, I put it right on the teeth, and I design, does this volume look right? Does it look too much? Does it look too little? If it's too little, I add a little bit more. And I decide with the patient. We put photos on the screen and we talk about it. I think that this should look a certain way because of these are the features that I think it would highlight. And so I think being collaborative with the patient, listening to their wants during that first consultation, sometimes some red flag patients, I like to call them, will slip through the cracks. Okay. And a red flag patient is a person who is saying they want one thing, but then driving the bus towards something else. And what I mean,
driving the bus towards the cliff.
Towards the cliff. Did I ever tell you this analogy? Like I always tell this to patients, like we can get on this bus together. I say this all the time. We can get on this bus together and together we can drive to that final destination. But I can't control if you grab the steering wheel and drive the bus off the cliff. I always tell patients that because they'll get into temporaries and it will be a massive improvement. And then they'll push it one step further. Well, can I go a little longer? Can I do? And I'm just like, I know that you're seeing this on social media. I know what this looks like in real life. And like, as much as you want the brightest color, unfortunately, you have too much yellow in your skin tone. And I can't give you that brightness of because you're going to look crazy or you're going to look fake. And I think that being very honest with your patients is important. At the end of the day, one of the biggest things that Dr. Appa used to tell me is it's not about you, it's about your patient, right? So at the end of the day, if we can get the patient to a happy place, that's important. But at the end of the day, you should pick a clinician that has the same viewpoint as you. You should do your homework, do your research on the people that you're letting do this dentistry in your mouth. What do their results look like? You cannot go to another dentist that's local and say, this is Dr. Andy's results. This is what I want. It won't happen. And we have a lot of patients that, unfortunately, that's what they say. I've gone to my local dentist. They told me they were going to send this case to your lab and that the results were going to be the same and I can do it locally. And the truth is that is not true. The reason why we have it in-house lab in all of our clinics is so that we can protect the integrity of our work. We don't accept
and exactly
cases from the outside.
And how, and you've got these predictable outcomes.
Of course.
Andy, I feel like we need a part 3 and a part 4.
Oh my God. We're just talking about teeth.
Let's do that.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much for spending your most unrenewable resource with me, your time. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate when you give your time to me in real life and friend life, but also in business life. We have so much more to talk about. So I think we should plan to just keep recording at some point.
We definitely will. I just want to say a big thank you to you for making time to chat. And I think so often we are in our own hamster wheel where we're just like going. Like, I love you so much. I care about you so much. I think you're such a special person. And I think that you're public, that you have created this platform, that they are very, very lucky to have somebody like you who cares so much to dedicate so much of their life to things like this. So thank you for having me. I hope to see you soon. Let me know if you're going to be around.
I will. Everyone read the show notes below. I'm going to link a lot of different things like Andy's socials. If you want to register for upcoming courses, all of that will be linked below. And if you have any questions for her, please slide into her DMs. She'll get back to you eventually, I'm sure. Until next time, peace out, peeps.
Bye. Bye, guys.